Hey, what's up, guys? Little astrology video for you today. I want to go over three things that I initially look at when I'm doing a birth chart reading that are often overlooked. And they are the inconjunct aspect between any planets, empty houses, and aspects to the midheaven. First thing, inconjunct is important to look at because it's essentially the aspect of non-aspect or no aspect. So whereas a trine aspect is very harmonious, very complementary, 120 degrees, there's symmetry and beauty in triangles, right? The trine is all about the right symmetry, the right amount of complementary traits between two signs or two people if you're looking at synastry. And then you have the opposition, which is 180 degrees. These are two planets that are on opposite sides of the chart. They're in opposite signs. They're in opposite houses. They are shadows of one another. So it creates a great inner tension. And it's very difficult to find that balance between them sometimes. But when you do, there is just an unlimited array of reward that can result from that. It's really about ultimate balance, finding that place in the middle between two opposite signs. So that's an opposition, generally thought of as a harsh aspect, although there's a lot of good that can come from it. Right in the middle, at 150 degrees, you have the inconjunct. Different element, different houses, different modalities between these two placements. They don't speak the same language. They don't have anything to talk about, so to speak. So the way I look at this is that this is a place in your chart or an aspect in your birth chart where two parts of yourself, you may often find that you have to choose one or the other, and that your life path can't really be fulfilled while satisfying both, at least on a conscious level. So this is going to reveal some sort of void, some sort of emptiness on one side or the other of the inconjunct. So, for example, I have my Venus inconjunct midheaven. So midheaven is all about really life goals, career aspirations, and where you end up when you're really at your best in the eyes of the public, in the public space. That it's that peak of the mountain in, say, the socioeconomic ladder that you climb to, that you reach. I have an inconjunct between that and my Venus. Venus is your social personality, your sensual and romantic nature. There's a lot of creativity involved in that. There is, connection between you and other people is expressed through a Venus sort of style. It's the feminine part of yourself, right? So I often feel as though I have to choose between work and pleasure, aspiring to the greater heights that I'm meant to on the midheaven, and hanging out with friends or having a romantic relationship or something like that. And the key to dealing with the inconjunct is to simply flow. It really is just to know yourself and to really focus on yourself. Especially if you're a man, you really should just be doing your own thing all the time. Depending on what your priorities are. If you're a woman, maybe one of your top priorities is finding a partner and having a family and everything. But at the end of the day, you're going to be looking for a man who can provide all the things that you need in order to raise a family. In the case that, say, you have to stop working at some point or for some extended period and, put all of your effort into that. So there's, there can be a lot going on depending on the different planets that are inconjuncted. But I like to look at the inconjunct because it is that aspect of non-aspect. It tells you about two parts of yourself that they don't see eye to eye, but not in a butting of heads sort of way. They just can't communicate. It seems as though you'll never make them merge. The key is just to work on yourself and to figure out what you really want in your life and disregard everyone else's opinion about everything and really just do your own thing. Second thing that I look at is empty houses. Empty houses remember, houses are contexts of your life in which the parts of yourself that are represented by the planets that are in those houses show up and are most prominent. Now, if you have an empty house, it means that you don't really value that thing in your life very much. But the reason, and so it seems like, a non-issue, right? But the reason I look at empty houses is because, generally speaking, the people who you really connect with in a very complementary sort of way are going to be people who have, major signs, major placements in the signs of your empty houses. Those people are going to come into your life and fill those voids for you, So if you have an empty 8th house, I would say that's a pretty good house to have empty because of all the baggage that comes along with the 8th house, it being very dark, about being things you've suppressed in the subconscious, fears surrounding death, surrounding, money problems and how you deal with handouts and things like that. Whatever sign is in that 8th house, you may have people who have their sun in that house who come into your life and illuminate that part of yourself in a way that you could not do for yourself when you were by yourself. Because when you're by yourself, you're in your moon sign, or you're just kind of operating under normal conditions, whatever it is you're doing. But you don't think about those matters of the 8th house if you have an empty 8th house, or the 3rd house if you have an empty 3rd house, So someone with major placements will, for the sake of not completing you, but giving you a heightened degree of self-awareness, and awareness of your potential, they may show up for you, light up those matters that those empty houses are dealt with, and that those empty houses deal with, and they'll call into question some things that you wouldn't normally be able to question when you're on your own. So empty houses are very interesting. The third thing is aspects to the midheaven. The midheaven is interesting. I talked about my inconjunct between my midheaven and my Venus. One of the reasons that I want to point out aspects to the midheaven is because many, chart wheels that you look at on many websites don't by default show you aspects to the midheaven. But the midheaven is very important. It is most often that cusp between the 9th and the 10th house. So it's the beginning of the 10th house. So it is that 0 degree, that point of entering into your potential, realizing your potential. And, once you've dealt with your 8th house matters and gotten over all of your suppressed baggage, gone through the 9th house, have built, a personal philosophy that works for you and is mostly in line with how things work outside of you, you enter into the 10th house. So you have to apply everything that you've learned about yourself, So it kind of marks a point in life. If we think about the chart wheel as being, the 12 steps of your journey through life. It's almost like a 12-step program that lasts your entire life, starting with your crowning at birth and coming into your body in the 1st house, Aries sort of matters, all the way to Pisces matters, 12th house, the collective unconscious, higher spiritual awareness, That 10th house is really when you're at your peak as far as other people are concerned, It's when you come into the limelight. So what aspects are there to that point, to that midheaven, Do you have some harsh aspects? Do you have some squares? That is going to mark things that are preventing you from hurdles that you have to jump over before you can really come into yourself in the 10th house and be comfortable in your own skin once you enter the public realm, once you achieve your potential. Squares are rough. In opposition might not be so bad, because you're going to have had to have dealt with certain struggles by the time you get to that 10th house stage of life, we'll say, anyway. So hopefully you found that balance. But oppositions can be difficult too. Depends what planets are there, What about your Venus, and your Mars? Your Mars is your masculine action-taking part of yourself. How you assert yourself onto situations, how is that aspected to your higher purpose? Is it harmonious? Do you have a good time, like an easy time articulating and really actively working toward those steps that are 10th house matters? Do you have some harsh aspects? Do you have a hard time articulating that? Do you have a hard time, acting on taking those steps that are necessary in order for you to get to where you need to be and should be in life? Look at Venus, look at the moon, look at every planet. What aspects do you have to the midheaven? What harmonious aspects can you use to your advantage? And which difficult ones could be holding you back? They will indicate things that are really holding you back from achieving your higher purpose. So those are three things that I like to look at that are often overlooked when I'm doing a birth chart reading. That is the inconjunct aspect, empty houses, and aspects to the midheaven. Hope you enjoyed this video. See you in the next one. Cheers.